It's Spoilerin time, folks. This week we will be talking about Extras, Season 2, Episode 2, David Bowie, and Preacher, Season 4, Episode 3. I'm Tom Merritt. He, my friends, is Brian Brushwood.
Heck yeah, we got our obligatory checking in on the summer movie draft, our silly competition game about box office drafts.
The long title.
Tom, can you tell I got up at like 5 in the morning today and flew back to Austin?
No, it's amazing. Can you tell that I'm going to win the movie draft?
I don't know that I believe it. I think you're sincerely underestimating how well It Chapter 2 is going to do. Right
now, It Chapter 2 has to make $116 million. Wait, is that right? Am I?
No, 156.
No, 216.
$216 million.
Which less than It Chapter
Lion
1.
King isn't done. Lion King isn't done.
Sure. Okay. So you guys scrape up.
If I were not me, I would say, well, it's too close to call, perhaps, right? Like It Chapter 2 very much should make more than that, but it's not impossible that it won't. We don't know how much more Lion King's going to make, but I'm just feeling it in my bones, Brian. It's going to happen. Sword and Laser, Team Sword and Laser will win.
I'm sorry. I thought I was talking to my co-host, Tom Merritt. Turns out I'm talking to my competitor, Tom Merritt, which is fine. Bad news, competitor Tom Merritt looks like Team John Trekker's going to crush you when it makes all the money on the planet.
How does being a competitor mean that you have to pick Team John Trekker, who is also your competitor?
No. Look, chaos is a ladder, Tom. I just want to see everybody miserable who is not me.
It's because Sword and Laser is number one.
Look, I'm not saying that everything that I'm saying is fueled by my rage of being in 5th place right now and the fact that it's one of our worst performances in the history of our silly game that we made up. But that would be a reasonable conclusion that somebody would have come to.
Look, I'm not saying that Pet Sematary is what dragged you down, and Pet Sematary and It are synonymous, because that would make sense, actually, other than the
No. It'll be really exciting, but it's all down to It, right?
Yeah, no, this is going to go to the wire for sure. This is probably going to go to the 4th week after the release of It, which will be the technical end. We will have probably already drafted the winter movies by the time we know the winner of the summer draft.
Yeah,
quite possible. All right, let's talk about Preacher, episode 3 of season 4. Brian, what'd you think?
It was great. It was weird because you notice how watching certain shows, it's different when there's somebody who's not familiar with the show and you realize you're sort of watching it through 2 sets of eyeballs. One is, you and your continuing story, but the other is like, what does this look like to somebody who's never seen the show before? And this was a weird one because it was 3 completely different narratives with 3 non-interacting stories, and all of them, I thought, really stood on their own. You didn't see a lot of advancement, but you did see a lot of character development. Loved, beyond words, all of the Cassidy stuff. I love every peek into the beginning of his coming to grips with being a vampire and all that stuff. Tulip was fine. It gave us a little bit of an insight to the office-like nature of the Grail. Also, Preacher's story, I mean, we all knew that he was going to walk in and make a mess of everything, but there was this brief moment that the camera panned out and you got this fight scene that was just a narrow strip across the corner of or across the screen. And I turned to the person who had seen none of this before and said, like just sort of pointed at him like, this is their trick. This is what they do. They every so often they get up and they flex and they look amazing. And then just when you get sucked in, they're all like, oh, by the way, sorry, we're Preacher. Gotcha again. Which they did with the diner vignette with the Killer of Saints and Arseface. I loved it. I think it's great. It's one of the best shows of all time.
I actually, the Saint of Killers has always been a character that I find underused. Like, we got this great backstory for him and this motivation, and then it felt like they just popped him in to be like, but don't forget the Saint of Killers might get you. And so having him in sort of a buddy comedy situation with Arseface entertained me great. I think that was my favorite of the storylines was seeing the Saint of Killers kind of protect him. Like, no, don't do that.
I especially liked that they've done a good job of sort of positioning him as less of a character. I mean, they did explain his motivation and why he's unflappable and unstoppable, but he's really an elemental force. It's like having gravity have a character or whatever, or a tornado or the wind or whatever. And those brief moments, it's like, what would a discussion between a tornado and the only moral character in the entire show look like? And it's adorable. It's been a blast.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. But I know our favorite moment is when we saw Hitler.
Yes. Okay. Unironic, fist in the air, like, yes, Hitler. So excited. Excited.
If you want to not sound weird, you could say, I was so glad to see Noah Taylor. But yeah.
No, I was happy that Hitler
the character
showed up.
He's playing and the way they've developed that character, and it makes you very uncomfortable to think it, but I'm right there with you.
And I like the fact that it's been long enough. We know he's running hell, so who knows how he got there? Who knows what his agenda is? But it kind of felt like he was like, yeah, I'm at Google now. You should come to Google. When are you going to come to Google? Maybe you'll get to Google eventually, but let's say we get you over to Google on the speed. It's great. I don't know where he's headed. They did a good job of holding that back. Everything about the show is awesome.
Yeah, everything about the show is awesome. And when I say the next thing, it doesn't contradict that. I'm less excited about Jesse right now, and I think I'm not supposed to be.
Jesse is legitimately the least interesting character.
Yeah.
I take that back. Tulip is the least interesting character because she's at peace with herself. She knows exactly who she is and what she wants and all that stuff. But she is in a very interesting situation in that she's, embedded in this bad guy organization or whatever. Cassidy is the most interesting character. I don't know what Preacher's motivations are or where we're headed with anything, but again, it's earned the right to coast for a little bit.
I think we're supposed to feel like Jesse is a little drunk on power and not making the best choices, because that's how I feel about him anyway.
Yeah, that's accurate. They did a good job of hinting or reminding us that the ability to say words that cause anybody to do what you want is not as all-powerful a gift as Jesse thinks it is. Can't much like a certain episode of The Boys, can't cause a plane to stop itself from going down.
Right. And I don't think we're going to see him fall from the plane next week. That seems silly, but they're certainly, trying to tease us with that concept. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I wonder if, do you think per the rules they've established, it wouldn't surprise me if he was able to do something where like he kicks in the door to the cockpit and the pilot's saying, all these things are broken. We're about to die. And I wonder if he could use the Genesis to say, figure something out, and then cause him to figure something out.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting thought. I'd like to see them try that. I'm not sure which result would disappoint me or excite me more. It would have to depend on how that was figured out and how it was explained that they figured it out.
What did you think of the scene where Herr Starr revealed vulnerability about his increasing disfigurements? Like I think that I wondered, like, to me, the character, part of what was interesting about him is that he didn't care, had no F words to give, whatever. His body's just a meat wagon to accomplish his goals. I don't know that I loved anything about him revealing sensitivity about his increasing disfigurements.
Yeah, I agree with you. We went through a long period of having it explained to us that Herr Starr is not invulnerable, but doesn't care, right? He went through that whole training session, remember, where he just proved how much he is invulnerable to opinion or worry.
Well, and that whole arc with his indifference to being raped. They've set up that he's made of sterner stuff than you and I.
I guess it's unbelievable to think that any human being could actually be like that forever. And maybe that's where they are with this character, but there's something that feels off about it to me too.
Yeah, and maybe it pays off, maybe it goes somewhere, but meanwhile, like it felt very un-hair star for me.
Yeah, it's not the hair star we fell in love with.
Yes.
Not like Hitler.
Hilter.
Excuse me. All right. Any other thoughts on Preacher?
No, it's great. Continues to be great. It continues to pull that trick of whenever I explain to somebody the entire game of Preacher is that they are so good at the cinematography, at the storytelling, at the acting, at the music, that every so often they try, their whole goal is to get you to forget that you're watching Preacher. And the moment you look down at the stain that they're pointing at on your chest, they hit your nose and they remind you, we're Preacher.
Hey, you're watching Preacher. All right, let's talk about extras. David Bowie, where we finally entirely depart from the formula.
Yeah,
we don't even open with a scene where anyone is an extra.
There was a brief moment about 15 minutes into this that I thought, because now we're in episodes that I've not seen, and it occurred to me like, wait, isn't this a David Bowie episode? We're 15 minutes in and there's no, and I was like, oh my God, what if there is no guest star? And what if, as a joke, they took somebody who was one of the celestial gods of famousness, and they just labeled it? What if the episode's just called David Bowie and he's not in there? And then later,
which would have been pretty cool.
2 minutes later, David Bowie shows up. I'm like, that is amazing that they got David Bowie to set foot on this set and to even just show up for a background shot for 5 seconds. And then David Bowie starts not only David Bowieing, but original musical David Bowie-ness, specifically about it's so weird because I went back and rewatched that whole scene, and it's so bizarre to know that if I was Ricky Gervais, nothing could be the bigger cap of success than to be sitting there having David Bowie compose, write, and sing an original song designed to hurt your feelings the most possible about your actual physical shortcomings. And yet his role was that he has to be trying stoically to muscle through it. But meanwhile, the actual human being has to be the highlight of his life.
Yeah, this, I mean, who knows? It's Ricky Gervais. I'm not going to speak for him, but if it were me, this would be one of the top 10 moments of my life, not top 5, to say, yes, I had David Bowie make a song mocking my weight.
Yes.
And it is a David Bowie song. It's not just like he tossed off like, oh, you're kind of fat. You're kind of fat. It was a David Bowie song with David Bowie inflection, David Bowie rhythm. Like you would, if you didn't know this song and just played it, you'd go, oh, that sounds like a David Bowie song. Like just amazing. I mean, it shows the genius of David Bowie and how good he is at being able to do that. One presumes that they gave him some preparation and he fooled around with some tunes ahead of time, but still, like that's work. And he's like, oh yeah, I can come up with something for you. It's amazing.
There is, I believe this might be my favorite episode so far. Not that there was one moment, I mean, the David Bowie stuff definitely popped, but it asks a kind of important question. What happens when the audience that you earn is not the audience you want or not the ones you hope for?
Prescient episode in this world where more people than ever have audiences.
Right. Well,
and more people than ever are chasing audiences for audience's sake without worrying like, fine, yeah, I'll take $2,000 to tweet about your face cream, whatever, you know, and not thinking about what effect that might have down the road.
Well, and I remember it blowing my mind when I found out that all of the famous TV people that I adored as a child growing up, none of them wanted to be on TV. They all wanted to be in the movies. They settled for TV, and they were all embarrassed and ashamed of the projects they were working on. And meanwhile, that meant the world to me. And then, you know, as a late 30s, early 40s person, you know, I was chasing TV and had no respect for my YouTube audience. And then meanwhile, there's a whole generation growing up watching people on YouTube, which is a bunch of people who perceive that what they're doing is lesser than television. And I don't know. I thought that I thought they did a wonderful job of bringing up that question without hammering it too heavy. And that end scene where at the end of the day, would you rather sit in the VIP section and be mocked by David Bowie, or would you rather go to the local pub and be genuinely loved by people whose opinions you don't respect?
Right.
I thought
it's because it's not an easy question, right?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that there's a real right or wrong value judgment to it.
If Ricky Gervais's character had created a show he loved, it'd be an easy question, right? We'd all sit back and like, well, of course you don't care if David Bowie mocks you because you love what you made.
Right.
And the people who appreciate that, even if they're small or there's not that many of them, that's fine. But that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with like, oh no, he very much does not like what he made. And agrees with David Bowie.
There's definitely that moment that he rolls over and shows his belly to David Bowie, hoping for a belly rub, but instead gets a knife to the guts. I thought it was very subtly, delicately handled, and I think it might be the best Ricky Gervais anything I've seen so far.
I'm trying to think because I'm not sure I can disagree with you on the Ricky Gervais aspect of that.
I mean, not that it's a contest.
I haven't seen that much of it, right? Of him, of what he's done. So maybe that's just unfair to say.
I'm told that Afterlife gets better.
My favorite moments are still in the Orlando Bloom episode, but my favorite entire episode so far is the David Bowie one.
It's so balanced, and it's such an important, interesting question that he brings up.
Yeah. Anything else on extras?
No, it's great. I'm really glad we're doing this side trip. Thank you so much for being cool with us doing that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad that I trusted you because this has been worth going down.
It's been a worthy journey for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, folks, thanks for trusting us with your time and your enjoyment, and we hope we keep you entertained, and we appreciate you. Become our patrons if you're not already, and get these episodes early. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.